Today, Ubuntu Linux is pretty much synonymous with Linux distro. It is very popular, OEMs have bundled it with different business-oriented machines, and it's been a foundation for— Wait a minute, but for how long? How long has Ubuntu Linux been around? How long has it been in this prominent form? And objectively, what did the first version of it even look like? You know what, those are some great questions, so let's immediately get started. So, I obviously do not need to give you a lot of explanation on Ubuntu Linux, unless you've been living under a rock for the past 21 years. But to put it simply, Ubuntu Linux is a popular Linux distro that has been praised by the press and is relatively user-friendly, though it has gotten into some controversy. It was created by Canonical in 2004, a company that was founded in March of the same year. It was created by people that were familiar with GNOME, Linux, Debian, and Arch. GNU Arch, not Arch Linux, and so I feel like that was a fairly decent base skill set of sorts. But enough has been said, I suppose we should get going with installing this. I obviously don't need to tell you what computer I'm going to be using because obviously it's going to be a ThinkPad, so I suppose we should just get going because enough has been said. For the most part, installation is quite straightforward. We put in our language info, it then detects hardware, asks for a network configuration which is slightly difficult but fairly easy nonetheless, especially when compared to some Linux distros, and then you're presented with partitioning stuff. After this, it's mostly smooth sailing, apart from a couple restarts and whatnot, and asking for you to set up your user account, so I suppose we should probably get into the actual OS. Once the system is done starting up, you're presented with a login screen that is fairly simple and straightforward. You put in your username and your password, and basically you're taken to the desktop. And you're also presented with this beautiful startup sound. Anyway, the desktop is fairly neat, and I kind of like it. Though I wouldn't use every single thing in here, I would see it being useful for others. My main complaints are that, first of all, the default file viewing window in the file browser is comparable to Windows 95 and starts a new window every time you open a folder and whatnot, and that pictures and music folders, among other more personal folders, are not automatically created upon the system being installed. Both of these things have since been resolved as of the present day, so I'm not going to let these completely butcher the experience. There are a variety of system tools and other things I find kind of neat. For example, the Find Files system. Ubuntu 4.10 also comes with a variety of everyday applications, such as a dictionary that requires the internet, which I am not connected to because, of course, I have to be forbidden from remembering the definitions of words. Oh wait, I have an internet connection otherwise. However, there's also a calculator and a text editor, as well as a terminal. That beep sounds funny. Yeah, let's just keep doing this. Alright, Echo, Regarding some of the more prominent programs that Ubuntu 4.10 comes with, there's Mozilla Firefox 0.9 from 2004, one of the earliest versions of Firefox, which has a default homepage that provides some info on the distro, providing us with the reason of the distro's name being Ubuntu, and also using OpenOffice.org as somewhat of a selling point, which we'll get to later. However, it's a web browser and we can view websites in it. Not as prominent, but we have two different image viewing programs, the Eye of GNOME and Gthumb. Let's do a coin flip to see which one I should do. Heads for Eye of GNOME or tails for Gthumb. Honestly, I suck at coin flips, so this is probably good enough. And I totally did not rig this because I already got the footage, but Gthumb it is. It's fairly simple, it's an image viewing program. And we can look at pictures such as this, or this nice picture, or, oh, oops, how did this happen? I swear all the pictures transferred just fine, and even though there was a crash, I didn't think that I had transferred any pictures yet. You know what? We need to figure this out right now. Just kidding. I'm not going to bore you with that side quest. I'm just going to tell you that, to put it simply, my PC has an NVIDIA RTX 3060. They released a new driver and I hadn't updated yet, and my chronically unreliable Windows 10 install didn't like my out-of-date driver and crashed. So honestly, this was self-induced error. Neither Microsoft or NVIDIA were at fault, but let's pin the blame on them anyway. There's also Rhythmbox, which we can't use because apparently Ubuntu doesn't have built-in MP3 codecs from this time. Man, I'm probably using too new of a file format. We also have GIMP, short for GNU Image Manipulation Program, in which we can do things like drawing and various image editing. Here's an example of an image that I touched up slightly in this program on the computer. Kind of neat, isn't it? The last prominent program that Ubuntu came with, in my opinion, would be OpenOffice.org, which I made a video on. However, this is specifically version 1.1, which I didn't show in my dedicated video on the program, but here's the writer program, which we can use to write letters and documents and whatnot. Eventually, at some point, you'll realize how hard it is to find creative ways to describe these programs, as well as the calc program, or what would become calc, because the title bar does not specify which program it is. But I suppose that's the main programs of interest that I want to look at, so let's try some games. First of all, there's Acyl Riot Solitaire, a solitaire game that is, if I remember correctly, still an option that you can install Ubuntu with to this day, and it's basically solitaire, so it's fairly simple. I don't need to describe it, but I didn't beat this game because this version of the game also has a redeal limit, unlike in Windows. Oh, wait, I did win this. Huh. Maybe I was thinking about a different time that I was playing this. There's also Same Gnome, which is based off of Same Game, where you match a series of things of a specific color. It's fairly fun, and I've spent some time playing it, although I use the planet theme instead of the default one, which looks slightly odd for my eyes. So there's also Mahjong, which is basically match two tiles of a specific kind and try to clear a board. I'm not the best at it, but I got very close to beating this game. There's also Gnome Mines, which is basically Minesweeper. I'm not that good at it because I am not good at Minesweeper, so what do I really say? And parallel to Gnome Mines slash Minesweeper, we have Nometris, or it's basically Tetris. I'm just generally fairly good at Tetris, and it's Tetris, so I don't need to describe it. You basically line up tiles to try to clear as many lines as possible while the game gets progressively faster. In fact, I spent so much time playing this on camera that I intentionally had to start being bad at it because otherwise it was just gonna go on, and my phone was probably gonna get too warm. So that's basically it. Overall, Ubuntu Linux was a fairly neat distro. At its inception, it was fairly user-friendly and beginner-friendly. It still had verbose things like installation and startup and shutdown, but the overall experience was fairly simple and easy for the most part. So I think that's basically all I have to say, so have a nice day.